Welcome to the 2010 Fusion Podcast, presented to you by the Oregon Ministry Network. Fusion took place November 4th through 6th at People's Church in Salem. The following workshop, entitled Poor Design, An Introduction to Free Design Software, was led by Mann.
Real quick, before I jump into stuff here, I'm just curious, how many people in this room have done what they would consider design work, laying out a brochure, creating graphics for things? If you could just raise your hands. Yeah, good. Yeah, for this question, I'm counting publisher. If you've laid stuff out, then that counts. Okay, for this next question though, the publisher doesn't count. Who in here has used Adobe Photoshop?
Once.
Once, okay. Who in here has used Adobe Illustrator? Who in here has used Adobe InDesign? Who in here has used some other expensive design or layout software? Like CorelDRAW or Quark or I don't know what else. I'd even count Page Plus. Okay, that's good to know. So we have a kind of a range of experience here. What I'm mostly going to be talking about today is software that you can use in place of those major three programs. Those Adobe programs, Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, are the industry standard for layout and design work. And they are very expensive. And so the interesting thing is that there aren't that many like medium-priced competitors in these categories. But there are, surprisingly, some very excellent, completely free programs that we're going to talk about. What we're not going to do today is you're not going to learn how to design. I can't teach that to you in an hour. I'm probably not even the person who should be teaching it to you. If you are hoping to find software that will do the design for you, I don't have good news for you. All of these programs, both the expensive ones and the ones we're going to talk about today, they require some work on your part. You have to put in some time. You have to come up with ideas. You have to learn to implement those ideas. You have to learn to use the software. So these programs aren't shortcuts to creating good design. What they are is they're free. They are capable of creating whatever you want to create and have the skill to create. They're very powerful, and we're gonna jump into them here. But before we talk about the specific programs, there's a piece of paper in these flyers that I just handed out that has just some very basic concepts that I'd just like to talk about for a minute or two, because these concepts are very important when we start talking about why you need higher powered programs for some of what we're doing. So a lot of you have done some design work. A lot of you have used Adobe programs, and you're probably familiar with these concepts. So I don't want to spend too much time on them. The first one at the top, I'll go ahead and bring this flyer up on my screen here, is color spaces. There are a lot more than 2 color spaces, but these are the basic ones that you're going to run into a lot in design. The RGB color space is a color space that deals with colors that are created based on the light spectrum. There's three primary colors: RGB, red, green, blue, and all the colors in the RGB color space are derived from those three primary colors. You put them all together, because we're talking about light here, you put them all together, you get white. You take them all away, you get black. You mix and match them and you get colors. Things that use the RGB color space are computer screens, photographs, anything that is creating color based on light. CMYK is a color space that is created using tiny little dots of color: cyan, magenta, yellow, and K stands for key, it's black. And anything that is printed, all right, not anything. Most things that are printed, most things that are full color printed are created using these tiny little dots. And if we took a microscope and we looked at any of these brochures that you have, you would be able to see the little tiny dots that are making you think this is red, but it's not really red, it's really tiny dots of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. This is important because, well, just real quick to mention, other color spaces that you might run into are mostly spot color based, so Pantone colors, if you've heard of those. Like the colors on my business card here, those are two Pantone colors. They're actually solid inks. They're not made up of little dots of other colors. And when you're doing Pantone printing, it's kind of a special thing. It's usually blocks of solid color like this. And other color spaces would be things like grayscale and monochrome color spaces. But these are the two big ones that we need to worry about for design. And the reason why we need to worry about these is because the RGB color space is what almost all the software you find that's free, and even the expensive software like Photoshop is going to default to RGB. And RGB is perfect for if you're creating web graphics, if you're doing PowerPoints, if you're doing things that are going to stay digital, or that you're going to print in-house. RGB is also perfectly fine. But as soon as you want to get something printed, and I don't have any of the real printed ones left, these couple tables got the last of my real printed brochures. But if you want to get something printed outside through an actual printer, these were printed by PS Print, an online printing company that is very affordable, and I highly recommend. Then your artwork has to be in the CMYK color space. And the reason is the RGB color space that's made with light and the CMYK color space that's made with printed dots have whole chunks of colors that the other one can't render. So if you create something in the RGB color space and you get it printed, it's going to get printed in CMYK, and you might get something back with completely different colors than what you sent out. So this is important because when we look at design software to replace these expensive ones, we have to keep in mind that we need something, if we're going to do anything printed, we need the capability to generate CMYK color space items. So moving on here. This one's simpler. I won't spend as much time on this one. Raster graphics and vector graphics. This is the little illustration there actually pretty well communicates it. Raster graphics are what all digital photos are. They are the most common image files that you see and get are all raster graphics, bitmap, JPEG, GIF. They're made up of pixels. Most of us understand that, and if you zoom in on them, they look pixelated. That's because the information in these graphics is stored one pixel at a time. Each pixel is assigned a color value. When you look at the whole thing together, it looks like one big picture. Vector graphics are calculated mathematically. They're not stored one pixel at a time. They're stored as a series of points connected by lines. so that every time you look at them, every time you open a file, zoom in on it, it actually redraws the image right there for you, so that as you zoom in on them, they don't lose quality. You never see pixels. You can print a vector graphic as big as you want it, and it maintains its quality. So this is the image on the flyer there is kind of a virtual representation of zooming in on the same arc for two different graphics, one vector, one raster. These are the most common vector files that or vector images that you deal with every day is fonts. Nearly every font out there is created in vector, and that's why you can set your font size to anything you want, and it always looks sharp and clear. Unlike the photo you have next to it that you make it too big and suddenly it looks pixelated. So vector art is a very important part of design. You want to, anytime you're dealing with design where vector art is appropriate, like the hand on the front of this thing, you want to keep it as vector. It will be sharp and clear, and if later you decide to blow it up to poster size, you don't have to do anything. Because it's going to look just as good at poster size. It's not going to lose the resolution. So that's for people who do most of their design in Photoshop. Photoshop can do vector type art. Obviously the fonts are vector, but it's not the ideal tool for that. The ideal Adobe program for that is Illustrator, and I'm going to show you some rough equivalents for both of those programs. So raster vector, both important. Raster's ideal for photographs, things that are so detailed that you can't just do them as a line drawing. But when you can use vector, you want to use it. Also, the file sizes are much smaller with vector, because instead of saving 50,000 pixels, it saves 2 points and connects them with a line. So a lot less information to save. Real quick, I just want to explain a little bit about resolution. This is something that confuses people a lot. I can't tell you how many times I've been doing something or someone's requested an image for something from me, and they've said, oh, could you send us a headshot of so-and-so? We need it to be 300 DPI. The problem with that is that that doesn't mean anything. The 300 DPI refers to dots per inch, and pretty much everybody's familiar with that term, but there's some confusion about what it means. And there's also pixels per inch, PPI, but for this discussion we're going to keep it simple and just refer to everything as DPI. You can't know the DPI of an image unless you know the intended size that it's going to be printed, because it's per image. So this first green box here, we've said that it's 400 pixels by 600 pixels. That's real information. If somebody tells you they need an image that's 400 pixels by 600 pixels, you can know for a fact that you're sending them an image that's the right size. But you can't know the DPI unless you know what they're planning on printing it, because the DPI is that resolution divided by the size. In this case, I've said 2 inches by 3 inches. So we divide the 600 by 300, or the 600 by 3 and 400 by 2. Either way, we get 200 DPI there. This is just kind of an extra bit of information so that when we talk about resolution requirements for things, we're all on the same page, and we know that if something needs to be 300 DPI, we know that that means we have to know what the end result is going to be size-wise. So, in other words, when somebody asks me for a headshot that's 300 DPI, I could send them a headshot that is 10 pixels tall and say, well, that's 300 DPI if you printed at 0.001 inches or whatever it would be. I know when they say 300 DPI, all they're really saying is I need a high-resolution image, because otherwise they would give me more information. but this is important to know. So that's the introduction to that. Now we're going to get to the good stuff. I want to start by showing you a program. It's called Inkscape. I want to start with Inkscape. Inkscape is a vector drawing illustration program. It is most similar to Illustrator. And I want to show it to you because if you want to try one of these programs and you don't know where to start with Inkscape. It is, of these programs, it is by far the easiest to use. It's pretty rewarding to use. You can do a lot very quickly with just a little bit of practice in Inkscape. So this is vector drawing. So just to, hello, mouse. There we go. So just to demonstrate, for those of you who are new to vector drawing, you can see I'm drawing a line here. This line is made up of points, which in Inkscape, those points are called nodes. In Illustrator, they're called anchor points. The design is all done mathematically, so we can create our shapes. We can make the lines curve. You can see this is very easy to use. All I've used so far is the pen tool and the node editing tool. I can assign colors. If I hold down Shift, I can assign a different color to the line. So I'm not going to show you how to use Inkscape today, but I will show you. I'm not going to teach you how to use it, but I do kind of want to show you some of the things it's capable of doing and how quickly you can do it. So let's say we needed a Fusion logo. Okay, I'm using the text tool, obviously. And I'm going to look for, yep, it's here. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. Inkscape is not great for working with paragraphs, articles of text. You don't want to do that in Inkscape. It's not what it's for. That's what your desktop publishing software is for, like InDesign, or what I'm going to show you in a minute, Scribus. Inkscape is for doing the graphics part. So because Fusion is just one word, it's a great program to use for making a logo or whatever, but we wouldn't want to actually put a whole article of text in here and try to deal with it. It would become really annoying. But for this sort of thing, Inkscape lets me do some fun stuff with these letters right off the bat. Just by holding down Alt and using the arrow keys, I can change the spacing between either of these letters. If I hold down Shift, it does it more dramatically, which is probably easier for you to see. And this is keeping it all text, too. So, I haven't lost the ability to add the word Hodo to the middle, which is important. You always want to, that's another thing that you want to, that's another reason why high-powered design software is very important. If any of you have ever done design work, say using Microsoft Paint or some other excellent tool, you know that once you've done something, it's done. Like you can't change your mind. You can't go, oh, I should have made that blue. Oh well, I have to start over again. So one of the things that you're paying for with Adobe software and you're not paying for, but you're glad to have with the free alternatives, is software that can give you non-destructive editing. It lets you, all of these programs use layers. They all keep objects separate. This is not a totally foreign concept even from run-of-the-mill software. I mean, PowerPoint keeps things separate and Publisher keeps things separate. You can move them around and change the color later. But these make it even easier to make changes that you can go back and change your mind without starting all over again from scratch. So this sort of thing, the ability to move letters of text around like this while keeping it text is pretty handy. But I don't really want to do any of these things that we've just done, so I'm going to undo it. I do want to, it's Fusion. We have our logo to consult here. That's very convenient. So it's Fusion. So when I did that logo, I wanted to fuse the letters because it seemed like a clever thing to do at the time. I don't regret it, really. So let's sort of make that match. I probably even did it in Inkscape. I actually use, even though I do have the Adobe software and I do use the Adobe software, I really like Inkscape. I think it's faster and simpler to use than anything else I have. So when I just need to mock stuff up, make it quick, see what it's going to look like, I use Inkscape daily. So now we've kind of moved these letters over so that they sort of match what we already have up there. So now I actually want to turn this text into a path because I want to edit it as a shape instead of as text. So I'm going to say object to path. And now you can see that if I click on it with my tool thing, now I can no longer edit it as text. Now it shapes with nodes. But I also want it to be one solid path. So right now it's group, so I'm going to hit Control Shift G, no, yes. And that ungrouped it. Now each letter is its own shape. I'm going to go to path, and I'm going to go to union. That's going to make all of these separate shapes into one solid shape. Now you can see I have one big shape made out of nodes connected by lines. I don't really like this little divot here where the F and the U meet up. So I'm going to delete those. And that line is no longer straight, so I'm going to click on that line with this, and I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to make that a straight line option. There we go. There we have the beginning of our Fusion logo. Now, I remember from the brochure that I made, it was not measured in feet, it was measured in inches. And it was 7 by 5. So I'm going to open up the layers palette here because I want to create a background. I'm going to click this box I just drew and I'm going to move it behind Fusion. I want to create a background that I can't accidentally move around. So I'm going to create another layer here in the layer palette, and I'm going to call it Design. And I'm actually going to move Fusion from the layer to the design layer. And I'm going to come back and do my background real quick. And I did not originally do this part of the design in Inkscape, but we should be able to roughly approximate it anyway. So I'm going to go to the color palette here. Move that layer palette off to the side. It's making this semi-transparent because of something I must have done before. It remembers what you've done before. I want this box to be the same size as the page. So while it's selected, I'm going to go up here, change the dimensions to inches, make it exactly 5 by 7. I want to align it with the page, so I'm going to open up the alignment palette, select align it with the page, center it, both directions. Okay, now I have a box that's aligned with the page. Now Inkscape has absolutely the best tools for working with gradients. In my opinion, it beats anything Adobe has done for ease of use in dealing with gradients in your designs. So I'm going to make this background into a gradient, kind of like is in the background of that. In my color palette here, I'm going to make it into a radial gradient, so it does a gradient in a circle. With the same tool that I use to edit the nodes, I can come here, I can move my gradient around, I can change the size, I can pick either end of the gradient and change what color it is. if I wanted to, I could also drag additional colors up here to the gradient. And adjusting them is as easy as just dragging around the nodes on this line that are assigned to the gradient. Very handy. But I don't actually want that. I just want green and blue. So we'll leave that. So that gives us our background layer. So now I'm going to lock that layer because I don't want to accidentally move that box we just made around. So you can see now I can't grab it, I can't select it, I can't move it. Now I'm stuck with using Fusion. For Fusion, I'm going to pick this lighter color. I'm going to change the opacity to 20, say. I'm not going to do all that to it. That would be time-consuming and a challenge, but I will hit Control-D to duplicate it. I'll make this one black. I'll make it, whoops, not like that. Give it some blur. This is a great way to give something a drop shadow in Inkscape. Put it behind. However, because this top layer is somewhat transparent, we're actually seeing the drop shadow through this text, and we don't want that. So I'm going to create a mask by duplicating this, creating a box around it. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, that's okay. The point here is to show you what Inkscape is capable of, and then you can go home and you'll learn how to do these things much quicker than you might think you will. And I'm going to give you my business card, and if you have questions about any of the software we talk about today, please send me an email. I've used them all. If I don't know the answer, I at least probably have a good idea of where to look for it. So what I just did was I basically made a stencil with this box so that I could use this as a mask around my drop shadow. So I'm going to hold down Alt so I can pick the drop shadow that's behind that text. I'm going to pick this. I'm going to assign it as a clipping mask. Set. And now it's subtle. And you totally can't see it up there. In fact, you can't see any of it up there. That's unfortunate. I should not have looked back there. You can kind of see it. Okay, well, we're losing the subtlety there. That's fine. You just have to take my word for it. There's a drop shadow now. It looks really good, actually, on my screen. It looks amazing. So, Inkscape, great for vector art. Not great for photos. We could probably do something kind of like that with a photo because there's not that much done to that photo. But that's not really what Inkscape is for. I would recommend moving it into one of the other programs to do that. But there we have kind of our basic Fusion design. Didn't take too long. There's a lot of steps between here and there, but this is great for mocking it up. I mean, it only took a few minutes to get from concept to a pretty decent idea of what the final thing is going to look like. And then we can spend as long as we want polishing it, either here in Inkscape, or we can export this in a format that one of our other two programs can use and do some stuff in there. Try out Inkscape. Do. If you haven't used it, if you're interested in messing around with design, Inkscape is a great place to start. There's so many fun tools here. So many. If we want to make our Fusion thing into a spray paint design, all I have to do is select it. Can't really see that because it's so transparent. There we go. See, I'm just spraying Fusion logos everywhere. Like just fun things that make doing some creative stuff really easy. Like that took no effort. I didn't have to take my logo and convert it into a brush and import it and set it up and set the size. All I did was select the item, pick the spray can, and start spraying it around. So I'm going to go ahead and close Inkscape. Now I'm going to show you GIMP. GIMP stands for Graphic Image Manipulation Program, I'm going to guess. I actually should have looked that up probably. Maybe I actually put it on here. I made this a long time ago. No, doesn't say. Something like that. They like to give fun names to free software. Anyway, GIMP is roughly a replacement for Photoshop. I wouldn't say it's exactly equivalent, just like Inkscape really isn't an equivalent for Illustrator. It doesn't completely replace it and everything it can do. But once you know what you're doing, you can pretty much get the result you want from them. So GIMP is a photo editor. Like Photoshop was originally a photo editor and has kind of become more. Oh yeah, here's a picture. So here's a picture of the Oregon coast, just to show you some of the basic features that that we turn to Photoshop for a lot of times to improve our photos, to adjust them. GIMP has the layers palette here. Has the toolbox over here on the left. Some things that you find yourself doing to a lot of images is going in and adjusting the levels. This is our histogram that shows where the amounts of light and color across the spectrum fall, and we can see that the mountains of our histogram end a little early, so we can probably make our picture look a little bit better just by moving these sliders in. Gives a little more contrast, although on that screen it already had more contrast. So maybe we like that, maybe we don't. We can also duplicate the layer, and GIMP gives us most of the blending modes that we're used to from Photoshop. We can set it to overlay. That will also give us some extra contrast. If we want to edit the photo, duplicate that layer again. Not going to take the time to do this nicely, but just to give a rough idea, I can make that layer a little bit transparent. Whoops. What is it doing? Oh, I have the wrong tool set. Okay, so I'm going to move this semi-transparent one off to the side a little bit. Then I'm going to make it opaque. Then I'm going to add a mask so that we can't see it. Full transparency. Then I'm going to use this mask with a paintbrush. I'm going to start erasing the tree. So this might be a technique that you would use to fix whatever needed fixing in your image. You can see it has very capable photo editing features, very much like Photoshop. So this is, if you need to work on raster graphics for your design, GIMP is what you want to use. It's the only one of the three that has the blending modes and the paint brushes and the palettes. On this design, back when I did this one, I did the hand in Inkscape. I did the stars in the background are using a brush. Brushes work very much like the spray paint can I just used in Inkscape does, but it does it with raster graphics that have alpha transparency that have varying transparency built in, so it looks very natural once you like stamp these stars into the background. Or on the inside, there's kind of this discoloration that was also stamped using brushes in GIMP. So in GIMP, I would actually, if I had the time, I would be able to make a more accurate version of that because most of that was done in Photoshop. For instance, well, let's see, how fast can I do this? Let's do a new layer. Sure. Zoom out. Come on, mouse. For instance, that lens flare on that design was done in Photoshop, but GIMP can do pretty much the exact same lens flare. Takes a minute to render it. And you can only see a couple of the circles up there, but they're all there. And what I did in Photoshop was I set that to screen so I could move it around. If I make this darker, you can probably see it. Colors, levels. There we go. Whoops, seemed to have canceled it. Well, you saw it for the 2 seconds it was up there. Also, something that we find ourselves doing a lot in design these days is actually taking another graphic, another image that's, I think this is, wow, that's huge. I don't think this computer can even open it, so maybe I'm not going to show you. There we go. Taking another image that is just there for texture. And just giving your image kind of a subtle, worn look. That one has this same image applied to it like that. So these are all things that you really have to go to your photo editor to do. Also, GIMP does not, okay, so real quick, Inkscape, only RGB. Don't try to do stuff in CMYK in the color palette. It says CMYK, but it's lying to you. It's all RGB. Everything it does is RGB. GIMP, by default, also, everything is RGB. That's not to say that you can't create things in these programs and then use them in CMYK. It's just a little bit more challenging. GIMP does have a plugin that I have installed here. It's called Separate. And it will convert your images to a CMYK TIFF file that you could import into the desktop publishing program we're going to look at for a minute. And it would already be in CMYK. Otherwise, you can create line art in Inkscape. You can create graphics in GIMP. In fact, I should just go ahead and save this so we can use it real quick. And then you can use the desktop publishing program, Scribus, to lay it out. To convert it, I should say, to convert it to CMYK. You still might have issues. You might have picked colors that once they convert to CMYK, they get changed, but at least you're going to know that before you send it to the printer, and you're going to be able to do something about it. Otherwise, you send stuff off to a printer, they convert it to CMYK, and you don't know till you get it back that nothing is what you thought it was going to be. Yes, right. Save. Close that. Okay, and last, we're going to talk about Scribus real quick. Scribus would be the replacement for InDesign. InDesign is my favorite of all Adobe programs. It's for desktop publishing. It's for putting together everything that you've created and everything else, and outputting it as a useful file. InDesign is for it works really well with blocks of text. Some of the benefits that you get from using InDesign, now a lot of people do all of their design stuff in Photoshop, and I understand that because all the programs are expensive, and if you have to pick one, a lot of times you pick Photoshop. If you're handling a lot of text, you want a desktop publishing program. Some of the features that you get from a desktop publishing program is the ability to create text styles and paragraph styles and apply those to all the text. So if you're creating a booklet or even a fairly serious brochure, you want all of your text to match. And if you have a whole bunch of blocks of text and you have to go and click each one, highlight all the text, check the settings, go to the next one, highlight all the text, check the settings, make sure you didn't change it halfway through and forget about it, then things like styles are your friend, because you assign a style to all of your major text, you assign a style to your headlines, you assign a style to your picture captions, you assign a style to all the different types of text you're using, and then when you change that style, it changes all of them everywhere. And there are other features like a baseline grid. This is something that it's getting a little more technical, but a baseline grid makes it possible to align everything in your document with everything else. It makes for there's a lot of subtle differences that you get from using an actual desktop publishing program to lay out your stuff that take it to the next level. Even if people don't recognize the differences, even if people don't look at it and say, oh, I see you used a baseline grid, it still makes a difference. It's a difference between how polished your work is. So Scribus actually has all the things that you don't expect your free open source software to have. It has full CMYK support. It has it can do the text handling, the styles. It can do bleeds and margins. You need a bleed when you get something printed somewhere because they have to be able to cut the edges off so that the color goes right to the edge of your design. Even Scribus didn't used to have that. So it's hard to, unlike Inkscape and GIMP, it's hard to show you Scribus in a way that is very visually exciting because we're talking about text handling and importing graphics and converting to CMYK. But this red line here, I've created here an 8.5 by 11 sheet. The red line is the bleed, so everything past that's going to get cut off. The blue line is the text margin, so if we were getting this done at PS Print, that's the size of margin that they require. So you wouldn't want to put anything really important past that margin because it can shift a little bit in the printing. All the images that you bring in, all the extra artwork and everything, it's all linked to that artwork. So if you go back and you edit your file and then you open up Inkscape again, your changes are shown or reflected. That you don't have to re-import it and resize it and reposition it and relayer it and all of that. So Scribus, if you have not used a desktop publishing program like InDesign or Quark, it has a pretty decent learning curve. And the same is true for GIMP. You're not just going to open up either of these programs and immediately know what to do. You're going to need to look at the tutorials, the instructions. You're going to need to spend some time with them. But if you want to be able to create whatever you've imagined creating, if you spend some time with these programs, I haven't come up with any challenges yet that couldn't be done with these and then printed with a professional printer. So we're pretty much out of time. I'd like to, we have a few minutes. I'd like to answer some questions if you have some questions. There's some more information, extra information on the back of this flyer, as far as some places to get some other free stuff. There's a folder on this laptop. This laptop is one of the ones that sits back here that people can take stuff off of and put stuff on. Up here in the corner it says Poor Design Software. All the programs that I just used are in here for both Mac and PC. Feel free to grab those. Adobe Color Profiles, those are useful. We don't have time to talk about them though. LibreOffice, that's, you may have heard of OpenOffice. That's the newest, best version of OpenOffice. It's a replacement for Microsoft Office. OpenLP, if you guys need a free alternative to Easy Worship or one of those presentation softwares, try this out. I haven't tried it yet, but it looks pretty classy. So if you do try it, please send me an email and tell me how it works. Because really at the network office, I have limited opportunity to try out presentation software in any sort of way that matters. So those are all in there. Are there any questions? Are there any comments? Are there any suggestions for your fellow table sitters? Yes, Aaron.
So this
the only person whose name I know.
Yeah, we sort of together. So this would take 3 free programs to make.
No, you could do all of that in GIMP.
Okay.
I wouldn't. I would do all of it except the text at the bottom in GIMP. No, that's not even true. I would do the, and this is actually a good point. There's a million different ways to get the same result. But because we're interested in non-destructive editing, and we're interested in being able to change it later, and we're interested in keeping things vector that can be vector, GIMP's not going to let us output anything as a vector, just because of the way it works. So I would do the logo in GIMP. I would do the background in GIMP. And I may or may not do the image. It would depend on how that worked out in Scribus. But we could do the text in Scribus, we could do those bars in Scribus, and we could probably do the image in Scribus, because it actually has some of the blending modes that you need to make it look like that, which would be, I believe I use the screen blending mode for most of those, which is just the way the transparency interacts with the layers below it. That's what I'm talking about when I say blending mode. It can do just the lightness or just the darkness or whatever. No, but in the process, I would end up using all 3 programs no matter what, because I would have used Inkscape to mock it up just to decide where I wanted stuff placed, because it's the quickest, easiest way for me to do that. And then I would have used GIMP to do all the photo-based stuff, and then I would have put it in Scribus because I needed to output it at CMYK and with a bleed. So just to get that result, no. But to get the booklet printed, yes. Which, this one, that's what I'm talking about. Yes?
Vector images. What's a good resource online to get free vector images?
I think there's one listed on here. VectEasy is a good place to look. And actually Bitbox, which is listed right there above it. Bitbox has a variety of stuff, but it will often link to free vector images too. There's some other ones since I made that brochure that I've come across. There's one that's actually specifically churchy. I think it's called creativemyk.com. You might find a lot of overlap. Like they might just be looking at those other two sites and pulling stuff off that they think is appropriate for churches. I haven't compared them that closely, so I'm not sure. There are a few stock, you've got stock images on there, fonts. Anything else? We can be done.
Do any of these programs that you've said, I know that YouTube, you can get those how-to. They'll show you how to do stuff in Adobe. Does GIMP have that on YouTube too? And then I wanted to know, have you ever created some of those? Because you sound like those guys.
I have created a couple, but I didn't actually put them on YouTube. I just gave them to people. Yes, there are. There are resources like that for these programs. Not nearly as many, but also they very rarely try to charge you for watching them.
Right.
So there are. You can try YouTube. You can search. A lot of them are actually on people's blogs who are into this stuff. These aren't just free programs. These are open source programs, and they tend to foster communities of people who are really passionate about them. So you can find a lot of resources related to these, and you can find a lot of people trying to help each other answer questions. So finding help learning these is actually pleasant. Okay? Go have fun. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for listening to the 2010 Fusion Podcast. For more information on the Oregon Ministry Network and our events, please visit our website at oregonag.org.